Well, how you getting on? Welcome everybody to the very first episode of the Savour Success podcast. I'm your host, Caelan Cullen, and as someone who has founded my very own food and beverage companies over the years, I've always been captivated by the journeys of fellow entrepreneurs in such a fantastic industry. Today's episode is particularly special because I'm sitting down with a longtime friend of mine, Dave Korsh, the mastermind behind Pinecone Coffee. Dave's journey is truly inspiring. He started off in a humble micro roastery in a spare room and grew it and since built one of Ireland's most renowned coffee roasters, known for its incredible single origin Irish roasted coffee. In our conversation today, we'll explore Dave's early beginnings, where he found inspiration to start his own business in Vancouver, the ethos that drives Pinecone Coffee. We'll also dive into the importance of customer service, sustainability initiatives in the coffee industry, and the powerful message Dave aims to convey through his business. We'll also discuss the challenges he faces every day and his vision for the future. So if you're a coffee enthusiast or just curious about the story that goes into creating a successful coffee brand, this episode is for you. So grab your favorite brew, turn up the headphones, chill out, and enjoy the very first episode of the Savour Success podcast. Let's get started. Dave, good to see you. How you keeping?
Good, how are you?
Can't complain, my man, can't complain. You've been making some serious moves lately in the food and beverage space, so I appreciate you jumping on today to discuss your story with me. And I'm sure everyone listening here, if you're big into the food and beverage business, so Dave has a great story, and I want to highlight the best of the Irish food entrepreneurs who are making waves in the food industry. So thanks for coming on, appreciate that. So look, I want you to tell everyone what got you started into the coffee business in the first place. Dave, I want you to tell us exactly who you are and the business that you have.
Cool. So, happy to be here. The first one of this series, I believe, so looking forward to hearing the rest.
Exactly.
It's a great idea in the food and beverage industry to be doing F&B specifically, so excited to share, I suppose, my thoughts on how I found the Irish hospitality industry as self-employed. So basically my background is, I guess I went to college and studied business and entrepreneurship, which was quite appropriate for what I'm doing now. I was in IADT college there in Dunleary. Great college, very practical course, so I guess I took a fair bit of that with me. But there's nothing like real life experience, which I'll get on to. So I did college, did my 4-year degree, while also working in hotels where we met, which is funny.
Good times.
A lovely hotel there in St. Lorgan.
Those days, eh? Learned a
Shall
lot.
remain unnamed. But I absolutely love the job there, unlike some people. And
Don't know who that is.
I thought hotels was for me. I thought I was going to go down the hotel management route. Absolutely loved them, still do. So then when I finished my course, I moved to Canada. I was 24, I think. Myself and the girlfriend moved to Canada. Mostly her idea, but glad we did it now. It was a great experience. Working in hotels over there, hotel management, decent job, but wasn't really getting any time on the weekends or evenings to spend with each other. So I quickly left that and got a job in coffee. Am I going too fast here with the story?
No, you're giving a great tour of the story.
Dived in here.
Yeah.
So basically I left that job and I was like, right, I need to get something else, ideally Monday to Friday. So I was on my way to that job on the bus on my last week and I saw a sign saying hiring on this place called Espresso Tech. Didn't really know what it was, but knew it was something to do with coffee. So I applied for that, did the interview, obviously researched what it was, and what they did was equipment sales to coffee roasters and cafes, which I thought was pretty cool. Didn't have any experience in that field, but they hired me and I went for it. And it was a steep enough learning curve, but just loved every day of it. The money was way less than what it was in the hotel, but absolutely loved it. So that's, I guess that's a bit about me in my last, what age am I now? Jesus. In my last maybe 8 years, I suppose, between college and work and starting the business. But yeah, that's where I started into coffee anyway.
So that's a great story, and it kind of leads into the next one of coffee is, I think, the most common traded commodity across the world. Everyone has it every single day, couple a day, three, 4 a day. I just finished mine there. And why did you think like this is the industry that I want to get into? The coffee, as you know, is a very saturated market as well. But what brought you into it that you were like, I have to go after this?
I suppose I always liked coffee from quite a young age. Actually, I was drinking espresso, which was a bit mad, but always loved coffee. Really liked everything about it around equipment, how espresso machines work, repairing them, all that kind of stuff. And I also loved hospitality, like I mentioned, the hotels. So marrying
Yeah.
up the two of great service and great coffee seemed like a good thing for me to do. I kind of knew when I was in the industry in Canada, Vancouver specifically, it was very advanced compared to what it was in Ireland at the time, which is 5 years ago. Um, there was roasters everywhere. The specialty scene was absolutely booming, and I was just loving every minute of it. Then when I came back here in 2019, um, I came back and the scene here was really good. It still is, but there was definitely room in the market for more roasters. But funny enough, I didn't start as a roaster, so when I came back, I actually started importing green beans before I started roasting. So it's a bit of a funny one. So I worked in the coffee industry in Canada, was playing football over there at the same time at a decent level. Um,
Decent
then
in air
yeah,
quotes.
then I got I got the chance to go to Portugal to play football there with one of my teammates. So an agent approached us and brought us over to train with some teams in the Algarve there. Took a while to decide whether to go or not, but decided, you know what, once in a lifetime opportunity, so went for it. So I left Canada after I think it was 9 or 10 months and arrived in the Algarve. Didn't know what to expect myself and a Canadian guy called Ryan. Um, Trying not to go off on a tangent here, but it is related. Um, so I went from Vancouver to Portugal and was playing football and wanted to fill my time during the day. So I started going around the coffee shops. I met this Brazilian lady who actually imported green coffee from her own family farm at home. Hence how I started learning about the raw ingredient, aka green coffee. Then I came back to Ireland and had a look into that. And at the time, there was very few importers. There's still only a handful of them. So I was like, right, let's go for this. So that's how I started, and I was importing from that lady and a farm in Colombia. Um, so I was bringing in the coffee, and I was selling to like small to medium roasters, and gained some unbelievable relationships there, which I still have now. But what happened was the roasters were looking for samples, and some of them were asking for roasted samples, and I didn't have a way of roasting them. So that's what led me on to buying a 1 kilo machine, roasting machine from Wales, and that's where Pinecone was born, which have probably led into the next question.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of funny looking back on that bus trip in Vancouver, that
Yeah,
serendipitous effect. If you didn't go past that
that's a big
sign,
word.
I know, right? I'm getting better at the old English language. You come across this sign, and that kind
Yeah,
of sparks a bit of passion in yourself. That you're like, okay, I'm going to go into this industry, learn it. Not necessarily thinking that later down the line you're going to set up
yeah,
a
definitely
business.
didn't think I'd stay in it, but here I am.
Exactly, exactly. So it's kind of funny how these moments
Yeah,
back in the day, it's kind of hard to see going forward, but you can join the dots when you look back. And even working in the
indeed.
hotel, I remember me and you were fighting over the coffee machine, who made a better cappuccino in the hotel we worked in.
Yeah,
And
no dispute anymore.
the jury's out who made the better one. But like it's interesting because you've always had that kind of passion about
Yeah.
coffee and food in general, and this just sparked it even more. And then you went to Portugal playing football and started doing the importing of the green bean and everything like
Hmm.
that. So it's interesting to see how it wasn't just a straight line into
No,
where you
no.
are right now that you
Like
set up.
a lot of people's route into becoming a coffee roasting company is they start as a barista in one of the good chains or in an independent place or whatever, but coming in from as being like a selling equipment, like an equipment dealer for machines or importing green coffee is quite rare, I suppose. But it was just an interesting way to come into it. Like I didn't actually start as a barista, which is interesting.
And that actually goes into the bit of innovation as well, which we're going to talk about later. But your viewpoint of going into the industry was going to be different because you came in with a different mindset and a different headspace. So you were coming in from the green bean sector, kind of fresh in from learning about the mechanics of the machines and how to fix them, and then
Yeah,
going into green bean. So,
which was business to business as well. It wasn't like business to the end consumer. So I guess maybe that helped in my roasting journey because wholesale is our strongest, B2B.
exactly. So the way you were seeing it was going to be completely different than someone that started off in a different
Mm,
medium or a different grassroots
mm,
area, like the being a barista and serving customers. Yes, you've done that, but you were coming from a
mm,
more technical standpoint, which is
sure.
it just goes to show, to be honest with you, getting into the food and beverage space and creating an incredible product. You don't have to always go the same route as everybody. There are different ways to get into a specific industry. You just need to show a bit of the passion and a bit of innovation and a bit of ingenuity to go after it in the first place. So, look, I want you to
100%.
talk about the big one here now. So this is one of the best coffee roasters, in my opinion, in Ireland. And we used you guys when I had my business from day one, and you guys have boomed since then. So tell me a little bit about Pinecone Coffee, and yeah, tell me a bit about how you started and go from there.
Yeah, so I suppose Pinecone is kind of what I'm known for, who I am really, yourself as an entrepreneur, it's kind of you're just attached to it. Everybody I think we talked about it before. Instead of saying like how are you, Dave, everyone's like, how's the coffee? It's like you
Yeah,
with the ice cream, how's the ice cream?
yeah,
So it's
yeah, yeah.
funny. You get very attached to it, but yeah, Pinecone I suppose was born like I touched on earlier from a different business. It was called Toucan Coffee Imports, where I was importing green coffee. Um, I had to start roasting samples for roasters, so I bought a 1 kilo electric roaster and put it in my garage and started roasting for the samples, but also for family and friends. And it went quite well with like family and friends, and it was definitely meant to be a hobby, and the importing was meant to be the day job, but that got flipped on its head fairly quickly, and I took on a couple of customers. Whether that was the right thing or not, I'm not sure, but it led me to where I am today. I was hustling 6, 7 days a week on that 1 kilo machine, like unbelievable stuff. And
I actually have a
then
picture in my phone of when you started with your 1 kilo machine, which I'm going to
yeah,
share with
I
people
wonder how
as
you can
well.
share that.
The early
Yeah,
days, of you like in your front room at
hanging
your
out the window,
hanging
sweating.
out the window in your family home there,
Yeah,
roasting with a 1 kilo roaster, making tens of kilos a day, which is
yeah.
for a
It's
one
kind of
kilo
cool to think
machine.
where it started. Sometimes you do forget, but yeah, things got pretty hectic, and I started looking to source a new machine. Definitely had to upgrade, like, or else we wouldn't have had a business. So, um, I luckily through a friend in the industry named James, who runs a great coffee shop now in Dunboyne called Ardu Coffee. He used to run a subscription, and he put me in touch with another roaster in Belfast, Belfast Coffee Roasters, and we decided we were going to buy their machine, which was 10 times the size, 10 kilo machine. So basically, they were very, very helpful. But what we had to do in the interim before we found the premises, which was pretty hard, this was just before COVID, I think. We had to go up to Belfast once a week, do all our roasting, bring everything back down in the van. So we were basically roasting offsite in Belfast
In
until we
another
found the
country,
premises.
essentially, you're going
I guess so, yeah. If you put
international
it like that.
roasting and bringing it back.
Yeah, so that was less than ideal. A lot of heavy lifting, green coffee sacks, the likes, but had to be done. Like, there's
So
no,
filling up your
there's,
car, going across to Belfast, and then
yeah,
going back, spending the whole day there, and then coming back.
pretty much, yeah. While we were scrambling, because we decided we were going to buy this machine, they had a new one arriving. We were scrambling trying to find the premises, and we were kind of like, we don't want something too small, but I can't take on a big, massive warehouse or anything. But something came up then in Rathnew, 2,000 square foot facility, which at the time seemed huge. It was, but it seemed like a good fit, lovely part of the world then in Wicklow.
Mm.
So went for that, and that's where we are today. And now we're running out of space.
It's a good
Yeah,
problem to have, though. So you
it
guys are
is.
roasting out up in Wicklow. You're there
Yeah.
daily.
Um, Not so much anymore. At the start I was, but I have a great team around me now. Um, lots of great people working for us, whether they be roasting or packing or in the shop. So yeah, I can say now, coming up on 4 years next month, that like we've a really solid team, and like anybody that has worked with us has also been fantastic. Like luckily we've never had a bad hire, touch wood.
Mm.
But yeah, we keep our teams quite small. Like our operations aren't massive. We've got a decent foothold, but they're not massive. But um, yeah, I think I'm quite careful about who comes into the business and if they're the right fit and they have the right values. But the guys that we have now are just super. And to answer your question, long-winded answer, I'm not there that much because I'm sort of doing business development stuff on the road at different places, visiting wholesale customers. So yeah,
And that kind of leads into my next question is a lot of food and beverage entrepreneurs that set up the company from grassroots. Like you were going across borders to get beans and roast and bring them back. So you've been in every step of the business. You've served in your coffee shop out in Dean's Grange as well. You've been in the roastery. You've been in all the areas. You do the marketing, the sales, everything. So how do you? This is a challenge that I struggled with
yeah.
as well. Was how do you step out of the business? As opposed to being in the business, doing the day to day, how do you start working on the business then and just let the business run and you're in the
Yeah,
background kind of orchestrating everything?
I guess it comes down to like the first thing you said, you have to have done everything, but you can't really start a business without doing every single thing. So I'd be very confident if I had to fill in any of those roles, I could do any of them to the standard I want. But in terms of like getting away from the day-to-day operations, like one thing for me, a big thing for me was wages because you're constantly watching cash flow at the start, and you're afraid like, can I pay someone full time to do that or even part time? So it took ages for me to take the leap. Like I was working my own shop the whole time, and I kept saying, one more month. But eventually, I think it's kind of comes to make or break. Like if you make the wrong decision, so be it. It's entrepreneurship, it's business, whatever. But I think you just have to be brave and step out and just kind of just go for it. And that's something I've done the last few years. Is like just put the right people in the right place. And yeah, your wage bill is a lot higher each week or each month, but you just can't grow if you're right there in the middle of it. I think a lot of us know that now. It's just you just have to step away.
So by you being in the business, which is funny, it's kind of that paradoxical element that if you're actually in the business working there, it won't grow. So you have to spend more from the
Yeah,
wages perspective to operate overall, looking out over everything
yeah.
to make sure
And
everything
that,
is
that can
running.
look a bit lazy. Like sometimes my role looks a
Yeah,
bit lazy because it looks like all I do is drive around and
yeah.
talk absolute nonsense, but I'm actually doing something.
All you do is
Yeah.
drive around and go on podcasts, apparently.
Yeah, in that bloody
Then.
Jeep, that Pinecone Jeep, just driving around everywhere, doing nothing.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
no, I'm doing a bit in the background.
Okay, no, that I think that's very important, and that's one of the messages that we're trying to convey is that you don't always have to be in the business. Like it's great to be able to fill in where it needs to be, jump on the coffee machine, do the sales, do a bit of the marketing, and understand how the business operates. But for a fully functioning business to grow and to perform the way, and then everyone does better once the business does better.
Hmm.
And the only way for the
Yeah,
business to do better if you step away and just oversee everything, but not go straight in. You know,
yeah, yeah.
and
Agreed.
that leads into, do you have a particular hiring process? Because one of the main issues that I came across over the years was hiring.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult process, and it's hard for your ethos of your company to get people to fill in those pieces of the puzzle. How do you do it that other people may struggle with?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. It definitely is in hospitality, in any job really. But I guess having some sort of structure when you're hiring someone, like, I suppose one thing will be values and going back to what your values are at the company. If that person can fit in terms of like, if they're respectful, mannerly, all that kind of stuff. So the main thing is obviously about the person more so than the skills. Like you wouldn't
Yeah.
hire a barista or a roaster that's rude. Well, some people might, but I wouldn't. Even if they
Mhm.
have the best skill set in the world, it's about the people, and I suppose that's what we're building our business on, is relationships ultimately.
Mm.
Um, Especially in our wholesale, like all of our customers, we have a very close relationship with them, and that's really important to me. Like, I wouldn't go and work with just some massive company just because the business is there. Like, we're a small batch, specialty coffee roasting company, and a lot of the specialty coffee world is built on relationships, whether that be with your wholesale customer, your green coffee supplier, the farms. It all comes back to respect for me, and that's what we're building our business on. So I think really deeply about the person and what kind of connection we have, and if they'll fit the business. Challenge is probably usually part timers if they're in college or something, just making sure that they're kind of buying into what the rest of the team is, and that the standards don't drop on like the weekends or whatever.
Yeah. So if you do have a new hire who's coming in either part time or just wants to learn about the food and beverage space and about consumer products or even retail or anything like that, to show them there's a path to keep growing in the business is incredibly important. You know,
Yeah,
what reason to focus.
a good conversation there. I was at an event on there Tuesday in 3FE, and I was chatting to a guy there, lovely fella, and we were just kind of talking about how the coffee industry can be a good career, whereas like sometimes it can be seen as a stopgap for people. But
Yeah.
honestly, there's so many good coffee shops and roasters in Ireland, and they're great companies. Like, there is definitely opportunities there. Same thing with us, and that's exciting for me. Like, I love to know that somebody can make a career in a coffee roasting business, even if they're not an owner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mm.
even the lessons they can learn, I always said back in the day was the lessons that you're learning now is something that you can put forward to a career or the job or in the hospitality space you go into in a couple of years. Like you in
Yeah,
espresso tech, tying it back. Like
yeah,
the lessons that you learned by fixing the machines, the intricate elements of how they did their manufacturing and everything, you've now pushed into your own business. So there is growth, and you can make a really successful career in the food and beverage space. Yes, it's
100%.
not linear in the sense of you
Yeah,
do this, you do this, but the lessons that you learn are very important. Like working in the bar, working in the hotels, you
yeah,
pass over that hospitality knowledge into your own business, or will help you grow in the business that you're working in at the moment, dealing with
yeah.
customers or anything like that.
That was huge for me. That like 8 years or whatever it was in hotels, albeit
The
part
years.
time, like just honestly, it was just. I do think I owe a lot to that
Yeah,
industry, really. You know.
yeah. No, for sure. And at that point in time, you're probably not looking at it like that,
Mm,
but then you look
yeah,
back and you're like, I'm glad I did that. I learned so
yeah,
much that most people don't even realize that they may have in them until they go into that industry, And
yeah,
probably one of the hardest things to deal with is either a tricky customer or an issue in the business when it comes to interpersonal relationships or anything
yeah,
like that, and what you've learned over the years to kind of make sure everything is as smooth sailing as possible.
yeah, 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 definitely.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you today, Dave, there's a lot of cafes and roasters are popping up a lot more frequently, as you know.
Yeah.
For you, what separates, you touched on it a minute ago, but what separates Pinecone Coffee?
Um, that was the one question I used to hate when I go to like the local enterprise office or something, the business
Yeah.
advisors, and they'd be like, "What's different about you to everyone else?" And you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm just trying to start a business about you, and they're kind of like, well, there's no exact thing, like everybody can say like we're trying our best with sustainability or the soundest coffee roaster or something, but you just have to strive for the highest standards you can. With Pinecone, I guess we're very personal in what we do, um, compared to some of the bigger companies. Um, and I know you can't always be like that, so the bigger ones are doing great jobs, so let them do their thing. But at the moment where we are in business, like we can just have a really, really good relationship with our customers. That's for the wholesale and the retail, as in our shops and even web customers and stuff. Like we'd be very personal with them. Um, so I think relationships and customer service, and everyone will say it, but it is something I'm like hugely passionate about, is customer service. Like I studied it, I worked it. It just fascinates me. Like remember I read the Marriott book, um, and they're like pride themselves on customer service, and that was just fascinating to me. So I think it's like Like we've got an extremely high level of service. We do our deliveries every Thursday. They're there every Thursday. Like I think last year we missed one Thursday because I was away or something like that. But our standards are really, really high, and that's something we pride ourselves on. Um, that's probably the number one, I would say. Um, I already mentioned respect. Like you got to respect everybody in the chain, whether that be the delivery driver coming in with your blue roll, or the guy supplying the milk, your green coffee supplier, somebody fixing the roof. Like it's all about respect, and I love that model, and
Yeah.
that's what we're going for. Um, we do decent coffee as well.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into the point I was going to make there is you can't really appease 100% of people with product necessarily.
Yeah,
Different tastes, different people prefer particular tones, tastes, everything like that when it comes to coffee or just
yeah,
food in general. But what I always say is you can appease everybody with 100% of your best customer service.
yeah,
Whether it's the people who deliver, as you said, the blue roll, the coffee, the green coffee, the milk, every element of that is the ethos of the company. So by
yeah,
showing respect, and especially with the customer as well, can you respect that? Because they're coming, you wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for them at the end of the day.
100%. Yeah,
So you might be having a bad day, but the best
yeah,
you can do is not convey that back to the customer and take it out on them and just appreciate that they're coming to spend their money, which they've worked for, on you and giving you a punt. So customer service is 100%, I think, in my opinion, is the number one thing that people should be focusing on. And
yeah.
a lot of people will create a product and be like, okay, that's me done. That's the millions will roll in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people will come and get it.
We keep a really open mind with different ways that people might drink their coffee, or questions they might have, or things they might say. Like there's no such thing as a stupid question, but especially when it comes to coffee, like it can be very daunting, especially in this specialty industry where there's all these kind of nerdy stuff that we do. Um, like I invite all the questions. We want to do more events to educate people about the coffee, and even like if somebody tells me they drink an espresso at home, like that's if that's what you like and if that's your taste, go for it. Coffee is subjective, even when we're cupping coffee and we're putting tasting notes. Like if you taste pineapple and I taste hazelnuts, like who am I to say? It is subjective at the end of the
Yeah.
day, and that's where the respect comes into it. And just being very open. Like we're not hammering light roast coffee down people's throats. If they want
Yeah.
something else, come talk to us.
And I love that point you just made there that a lot of coffee shops, coffee companies, they're very much product heavy. And if that works for them, that works for them. That's fine.
Mhm.
But when it comes to your version of success, to create that experience for the customer. So I've been in your coffee shop probably 101 times, right? I
Too
think
many.
I've done a couple of shifts behind the bar as well with you.
Yeah. Poor
But,
Ross back in the
but exactly, you saw me every day.
day.
Well, you guys have consumers from the age of 16, 18, 20. There's no demographic, right? You have
Yeah.
people in the older generation in their 80s coming after church. You have younger
The amount
students.
of business plans I've written, and it's like, what's your target market? And I'm like, everybody. Not
Exactly.
everybody is like,
I
you
think
know.
it depends where you are and it depends on the business model. But for yourselves anyway, you've
Mm,
seen a massive uptake in the experience that you provide people. So you don't treat
mhm.
anyone different from the age demographic, from a student to an older person,
Yeah.
and you just make sure they have a great experience every time. A great coffee,
Yeah.
a great product, but also an even better experience. And that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you're not trying to confuse people or kind of patronize them. You're just trying to
Yeah.
give them a great cup of coffee with a great experience as well,
Yeah.
and that resonates with your staff as well, and it really, really helps. So, fair play there's a lot
I'm
of people
thinking of that
putting down
Brendan
that.
Gleeson video. Do you know that one where he's like, "Can I have a coffee?" And the one behind the counter's like, "Light roast or dark roast?" And have you know? It's like, just give me a bloody coffee. So you have to kind of play it to the audience, don't you?
Exactly, exactly. You have to play to the audience. You have to work with the customers because if they don't, they enjoy the product, but they don't enjoy the experience. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, oh, I had a great coffee, but the barista was rude. It's like, oh, I'm going to go back. They're not going to do that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
For sure.
So everything goes
Yeah.
into the overall experience of creating that coffee shop. Dave, a buzzword that is thrown around a lot in every single industry is
Is this
sustainability. Okay, what does sustainability mean to you, and how would you like to bring it into your business?
Um, it's such a broad word, isn't it? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
from plastic bags to sustainable relationships, working with farms in Brazil. It's so broad, isn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we do our very best. I think that's all you can do when you're this size. I think there's like bigger worldwide companies could be doing more, but that's not neither here nor there. Um, we're working actually at the moment. We're on a green, I think it's called Green for Micro program with the local enterprise office in Wicklow.
Amazing.
So we're actually working on like our water usage, like how much carbon we use between all the staff on our way to work, whether we can put solar in and stuff. So we're kind of striving as best we can for that stuff. I suppose something we've done since we started is zero waste deliveries. So we have these reusable buckets that we use for most of our customers. And we deliver their coffee in reusable buckets each week, take them back, replace it with a new one. And the amount of bags, single use bags we've saved there is like way into the thousands. Like that's a lot. It really is a lot. Like, and that is a credit to ourselves, but also to our customers for buying into that model and helping us with the reusable program. That's probably our biggest sort of achievement when it comes to sustainability. Like we've saved so much bags, and I'm really proud of that. And we want to push that even more. Um, and then other things, I guess, just comes down to like programs that we're trying to set up with. For example, there's something called coffee chaff for people that don't know about it. It's the husk that comes off the bean when you roast it. That's kind of like almost dusty almost, but it's really good for mulching in gardens and composting. So we give them to a local gardener and we offset them rather than throw them in the general waste. All little things like that. But I believe it's like do a little bit often, I think, is the way we're trying to take it. Because we can't just sit down and change everything. Otherwise, you know yourself, like you
Yeah.
can't have a business if you're just like, this is all we do.
Yeah.
You have to do, well, I believe you have to do coffee bags for some customers. Like we can't send a bucket to a customer in Portugal or Canada. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
to get the growth, we have to do some things, but yeah, I mean, we're trying. What do you think?
Well, it kind of goes into innovation, right? So the way
Hmm.
you were talking about it there is when you bring the buckets of coffee to people, you're eliminating the plastic wastage, right?
Yeah,
So it kind of feeds into, but it also saves money as well. That
yeah,
constantly of using disposable items as well. So people don't realize that sustainability is also innovation by doing things a bit differently
yeah,
in a traditional market, right? By doing things a
yeah,
small bit differently, you're also taking things out of the supply chain that is unnecessary. That's like, oh wait, we don't
sure.
need this anymore.
Yeah,
And there's a famous case about Walmart, and they basically were looking to decrease their carbon emissions with their truck drivers. And what they did was they just retrained their truck drivers to drive better and not idle their truck whilst they're waiting.
yeah,
By doing that, they saved a lot of money in fuel and everything.
hmm,
So the company did better because it saved money, but also their
yeah,
carbon emissions went down because they trained their drivers to be better. Like you with the buckets,
hmm,
like you're giving them a better way to be able to use it in their coffee shop and
yeah,
reducing their plastic usage. But it's also bringing stuff out of the supply chain, less plastic, less carbon emissions, all this type of stuff, which has a net good for the company. So
yeah.
innovation around sustainability, I think, is the way forward by looking at the traditional models and innovating around that. A lot
Hmm.
of people
It'd
just
be
leave
great to
things
supply them
out the open.
nationwide. Like at the moment,
No, it's
we
like,
only we only do the reusable buckets as far as we can deliver. But if we could do them nationwide, like that would be the dream. We'd save so much plastic. But there's a
yeah,
small problem called couriers in Ireland that are not super helpful at the best of times. So
yeah.
they want to put surcharges on the buckets and all this kind of stuff. It's very annoying, but we're trying to work stuff out.
Look, these are the kind of improvements when it comes to sustainability and
Hmm.
innovation that kind of go hand in hand. That it takes a bit of balls to go into it. Like
Hmm.
it's not easy to make these decisions
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
could it cost me more money? It might, but in the long run, it's going to actually save you
yeah,
money, carbon emissions, and everything from there. So fair play. It's not a lot of people don't do it, and they just want to create a product and then they don't really care after that. But it just goes to show, and I can see from yourself and knowing you for 10 odd years now that it does mean
Jesus,
something to
10
you to
years.
be conscious about your impact at the end of the day. So
Definitely, yeah.
when it comes to the day-to-day running of Pinecone, what is the toughest element of it?
Ooh. Um, Prioritizing and delegation.
So the time
Time to
management
expand.
perspective.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I'm a, I'm terrible for writing down about 25 things to do in the day. That list should be like five or six maximum. But then when you kind of decide which is the most important, it's very easy to fall into like doing the easy one, like, oh, order the milk rather than like make that phone call to the customer or do the sales call or something. So it's definitely the most challenging thing is prioritization and time management. I think they fall in together.
100%. Yeah, and that's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into. And it's something I think that as you get older, you're only 29 at the end of the day, you're almost 30.
Here.
So it's something you get better at and refine over the years. You know, you're not going to be perfect at it, but time management, delegation is incredibly important, especially when it comes to the overall operation of the business. When it comes to it, Dave, your version of success, what does success mean for you in Pinecone?
So my version of success would be running this independent specialty coffee company. Um, we've got a few sides of the business, wholesale, retail, website, which is really exciting. But the success for me would be being comfortable with the business, getting to a good level with it, not outgrowing or not going too big or becoming one of those massive companies doesn't interest me. So creating a nice life and doing it the right way, sustainably, and making a difference in people's lives, especially going through the coffee chain at origin. So Brazil, Colombia, Peru, all these great places that we get coffee from, making a difference to them, which I believe is hard when you're small, but as you grow, you can buy more of their coffee, support them every year. That really excites me. But then bringing it closer to home then as well, making a difference in people's lives here, like waking up and drinking incredible coffee, or even just educating the whole market. Like success for me in Ireland would be like a really educated um, a really educated public that know more about coffee because there's so much to it and there's so much that people don't know that's going on at origin that is just incredible. And the fact that we can get what we taste out of coffee is just fascinating,
Yeah.
if that
Different
answers.
tones, different regions, different areas.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
just great.
think do you think Ireland is at the forefront of a revolution at the moment in coffee in a sense? Like because in comparative to other countries, Canada, you said that's where you kind of learned
Mhm.
your trade. London, do you think we're catching up to these countries, or do you think we're
Oh,
still a bit
definitely.
behind?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think like Dublin Coffee Festival in March when we were at that, it just really made me think that we're blessed with such high quality coffee roasters here.
Yeah.
And we've got great coffee that everybody's using. Consumers like, yeah, we're in a really good place. But don't be fooled. It's not like you can just go into coffee and make a quick buck. It's not the case. And like people are seeing now like the she's not even €4, it's 4.20, 4.30, whatever it is for a coffee, thinking, geez, these must be making a fortune. Not the case at all. Like margins in coffee shops are extremely tight and yeah, everyone's doing a great job just to stay afloat, to be honest. I'm not trying to create this whole oh poor us, but
Mhm.
there's so much that goes into it, and it's hard work. It is.
And that's up to you guys as well, in a sense, to keep innovating, to stay ahead of the trends, and kind of
Yeah,
either from a sustainability standpoint and just kind of keep improving and fine-tuning the
mm.
processes. Because if people
That's the
stay in the
other
way
side
they
of it.
are, the industry is just going to lag and it won't
Yeah,
keep up with the likes of London, Berlin,
I do
Canada.
believe, like you're saying, like we're as coffee shops and all that, we're talking a lot about all the VAT rates gone up. It's so hard. It's hard for all industries. It definitely is. But like you're saying, there is a responsibility on coffee shops to be smart and lean and you know yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
When it comes to it, you're going into your coffee shop in Baker's Corner, Pinecone Coffee. What is your go-to order?
Very boring actually. It would be double espresso or single espresso, because sometimes I go single because I drink a lot of coffee as I go around. But I just love an espresso, plain and simple, no sugar, no milk, just straight up espresso. Love it. If
Any
not that,
particular
I'd probably
region?
get. Um, at the moment we have a Peruvian coffee in, the natural Peru. Um, it's my favorite coffee of the lineup at the moment. Nice kind of nice body to it, natural sweetness, really really tasty. Yeah, that's my go-to at the moment. If I'm going around places, I will generally try and see if they have a guest coffee on, or go for maybe a filter pour over or something like that. You know?
Perfect,
Yeah, I try.
100%. Now
Mm.
that Peruvian espresso sounds like the job. So
Mm.
when I'm back, I'll have to try it. Who do you think and who do you see out there in the Irish food and beverage space that is doing a fantastic job in the industry right now?
Oh, that's a tough one because there's so many. Like, yeah, the food and drink industry here is so good. When I went to Canada, I realized that so much, that like the quality here is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Um, I won't pick anyone from the coffee industry because I feel like that's unfair. I have lots
that's
of
fair.
friends and customers there, so I can't, no favoritism there.
Yeah.
But there's one that actually in an industry you'd know very well, um, called Day Ice Cream. So they do vegan ice cream, and it just tastes, the product is fantastic. I love their branding, and I love the people behind it. Connor be a good friend of mine now, and I just think they're really plugging away at like a tough enough market and a tough industry, and they're really sticking to their values, and that's very inspiring. And we talk a lot and give each other advice and go over a few things, so it's great to have someone like that to bounce ideas off. But yeah, I think they're doing like, it's a hard game, like I think it is, and they're just sticking at it. They're doing brilliant as well, and yeah, definitely take a lot of inspiration from the guys at Day. Like they work really hard, and it shows in their product.
Yeah,
Um,
if anyone gets the chance to try out Dave's ice cream, it is fantastic. Met Connor a good few
so good.
times now over the years, and Dave, it's perfect,
Yeah,
perfect example of an entrepreneur in the food and beverage space, particularly hard food and beverage space, that's doing great things and striding and creating fantastic products and creating a great company around it as
definitely.
well.
Another one that doesn't actually produce but supplies to the food and drink industry is Ping Media. So they do all our media work. Nick there, the owner, is just, he's doing some top notch stuff, and he's really just really easy to get on with. Does some really good stuff. Very passionate about the food and drink industry, and I think you know Nick as well. I think we both know he's going to do very well. So that's one to watch as well.
Again, yeah, great recommendation. Nick is doing fantastic work from the videography and photography standpoint, and just general media for food and beverage space, really helping entrepreneurs really get their product out there. So shout out to Nick Grennan as well. He's done a fantastic job. So keep that up. So two great recommendations there, and two great people leading great companies there. So last bit, Dave, and we're going to end on that, is if you had one piece of advice, you've been doing this now for 4 years, what would you offer yourself 4 years ago that you wish you knew now?
I'd say that one piece of advice is to use that to the best of your ability. And it's just incredible the connections you can make from one phone call, you know. Um, Definitely something like I'm much better at it now, and in fairness, it comes with confidence. But the networking, I know it's a buzzword, but like the doors it opens for you is unbelievable. Like how you could get a building for a lease, or find the next web designer or something. It's all about networking, talking to people. Um, yeah, like just make that phone call if you're thinking about it. Just make it, or send that message. Better to pick up the phone, definitely. But just make that phone call when you're starting off. Just don't be afraid. Like, it's a short life. Just go for it. Who cares what people think? You know, the worst someone can say is no. They're not going to laugh at you. All they'll say is no, I can't do it or whatever. I'd say just make that phone call or network is. I think you probably agree with that. You've always been good at that, but like just putting yourself out there, who cares? Like just be brave, you know?
It's kind of cliche in a way, but it's so true. It's like for every 10 no's, there's going to be one yes. So just try your best to kind of break that barrier of failure and just go all the way and just try
Yeah,
and get to, and by any means necessary, get through to the people that you need to, or even when it comes to retail, just give them a call, see what happens. You never know. The worst
you
they
can
can say
always
is no.
start it. we started in Baker's Corner with the trailer
Exactly.
there. And I just went into the off license one night and it was like, is there anyone I can talk to about putting a coffee trailer in their car park? And that just seems like an outrageous thing to ask
Yeah.
someone in an off license.
Yeah.
One thing led to another and they've been great.
And you've been
But
there
if you
now
don't ask,
almost 3 years now. You've had the coffee shop in Baker's Corner.
that's
So
it. That's
that
it.
was just from one conversation with someone at the off license,
Yeah.
So it's
Not
these
even the decision
moments.
maker.
Exactly. It's these moments in opportunity where you just have, if you don't take the opportunity, you're not going to get it. Or if you don't even see it there, you're not going to actually just even ask or even try.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
Dave. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So where can we learn a bit more about yourself or Pinecone?
So you can visit the website pineconecoffee.ie. We're pretty active on Instagram as well. You can visit our roastery. We have a nice setup down there in Rathnew, or you can come to our shop in Baker's Corner in Dean's Grange, or message or whatever.
So if someone is looking at into the coffee industry or sample some coffee or anything, they can head up to the roastery. They just send you a message and you can do a bit of sampling up in the roastery with them.
Tasting, yeah, anything like that, or anybody that wants a bit of help in coffee or do a collaboration, come talk to us.
Class. Amazing, Dave. Spreading the good word of coffee, Dave. Thanks, Mel. Appreciate that. I hope everyone that was listening today enjoyed that. With a good pal of mine, Dave Korish from
Yeah.
Pinecone Coffee. Appreciate it, Dave. Cheers.
Good job. Cheers, man.
That's a wrap for the very first episode of the Savour Success podcast. I really hope you enjoyed hearing Dave's story, his insights, and you came away learning something new. If you did, please subscribe, leave a rating, or even drop a comment below. Every little bit helps, and let me know what you think. Well, in the meantime, guys, thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations from some of the world's finest food and beverage entrepreneurs. But until next time, keep savoring success.